Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and this is Venus hour still, I believe. Let's take a look at the current planets, and we have Venus hour. I think so, or Mercury already. Mercury hour, and the midheaven is ruled by Jupiter, ascendant at 6 degrees Pisces. The moon 18 degrees Leo, which is a great time to talk about toxic leaders. And I'm here with a chart of a deceased, well-known Israeli IDF military general whose actions against women are comparable to Nazi SS officer at his rank. And his name is, in Hebrew, his name is Moshe Dayan, basically denoting of him being a rapist. To be very honest, I am not acquainted with like his military actions as a general. It's just that's what he's known for. It's just he was a rapist. He died of cancer in the large intestines in October 1981. Yeah. So to take a look at the chart, do I see a Nazi mass rapist here? Nope. Actually, his Rao and Ketu are on the axis of Cassandra, who was actually a cold case of a murdered young girl that in Netherlands a while ago. So it's just the same degree Rao and Ketu. I remember this drew my attention back then because the nodes are fated point and she was murdered. In his case, 22 is to kill and be killed. So actually 22nd degree is compatible for anybody to do with army. Uranus in Aquarius, Uranus at its home sign. Rao Uranus can actually denote of a revolutionary person. Saturn 29 degrees Gemini. And Mercury with Taurus in the middle phase of Taurus. Mercury with Sun with the middle phase of Taurus. Black Moon Lilith 28 degrees Taurus. Trining Moon in Capricorn conjoining midheaven. So it is a C rated. So we have. It means that we probably do have the ascendant in midheaven, but might not be to the degree. The nodes are however, to the degree. Ascendant Aries with Mars conjoining ascendant. Again, very compatible for a military person. Venus in Aries. His Venus, in the first decan of Aries. Chiron Jupiter in the 12th house. Chiron Jupiter conjoining can be denoting of a wound around beliefs. And 12th house have to do with secluded places. So it simply means that there was a wound around forming a belief. Actually, something could have happened to him as a child because of religion. Maybe not even in his waking state. And it does trine this moon Capricorn, so it had contributed to perhaps an emotional state of having to be resilient or even numbness, emotional numbness. Actually, the moon was crossing his lot of fortune, which might be why I'm bringing him up right now. Neptune 27 degrees Cancer, Pluto 0 degrees Cancer, Pluto Saturn conjoining, which is a person who will go through a lot of strife, psychological strife, but also financial. If you ask what would be here denoting that he was a mass rapist, I think the only thing that can link to that is actually the wound that he has in the 12th house, which could, 12th house also rules the bedroom, but also unconsciousness. So there can be some sort of dissociation around bedroom things that may have had to do with him being either in preconception or in the dream state, having some sort of a wound as a child to his beliefs. Doesn't necessarily denote sexual wound, but there's some sort of wounding for him as a child by a religious person, or because of something to do with that. So that can denote that there is some sort of wound around bedroom affairs to do with beliefs and children. Other than that, his Mars squaring Moon is actually more about, like, he could have hurtful words or something like that, but I don't necessarily see that as sexual aggression. It seems to me that he became this person very likely due to some sort of, well, some sort of upbringing, something in the 12th house. Lilith at the end of Taurus, squaring Uranus, and mainly squaring the nodes, separating from a square to the nodes, can denote at fated issues around sexual sovereignty, with Venus in his first house, but this could be him being violated as much as violating, and usually if a person crosses the threshold to be violator, he was violated, but those that were violated will not necessarily cross the threshold to be violators. They're more susceptible to, if they don't heal by setting boundaries to offenses or offenders, in a way which they can do that. And very likely during his time he was either not able to do that as a young boy, and then violated very likely also boys and soldiers and women, and we see that there's something to do with releasing from a fated square. Venus on the world degrees could be, and also the Uranus in the background conjoining Rahu. It could be something global. But then he was born 1915 for May, so I really don't know. And he was born in Kfar Saba, which now is Kfar Saba, Israel. I don't know how this place was called before that. The Zionist settlement. Was it already Zionist settlement? I don't know. Israel's Mars would be conjoining, and Pluto and Saturn would be co-present with his Ketu. Sun ruling over Ketu in Taurus, in the second house. Saturn in the third house ruling over Rahu. As for military activity, again, Mars squares the midheaven. which means that his actions are at odds with his legacy. Okay. This is a night chart, so Saturn is the most malefic, and something to do with cities and the structure of cities being demolished. I don't know. For Israel's chart, his Saturn would be in the 9th house. It, by the way, conjoins Uranus of natal. Saturn-Uranus will have a Saturn-Uranus conjunction at around 2030 with Ketu in Gemini. So yeah, I think what the greatest value that as an astrologer I can derive from here is that I previously in Jupiter Point of Dallas, and I think even Rockefeller Astro Leaks on BitChute, I addressed the fact that can astrology be used for profiling? And as an Israeli, I can say that profiling is more science fiction to target people than an actual science. Particularly because to train a person to identify faces, they would need to torture the person, and the person that they're supposed to identify is also tortured. So it's kind of like it's so dynamic that this is an entire science that it's not that the face of a person is a capture of one single moment and not a capture of their entire personality, which means that statistically most offenders would go under the radar. So astrology as well, it's a set of potentials, but when we see that those potentials are tweaked under abuse, then things would express themselves differently. I can definitely see that, Chiron in the 12th house can be a wound around seclusion or the dream state or bedroom affairs or hospitals, jails, and so on, but it can simply also be psychically attacked at preconception. Chiron is Chiron. Okay, the 12th house is also the psychic realm. So Mars conjoining ascendant in Aries simply states out CEO, founder, military man. Even when we talk about the Zionist settlement, so using the army to build something new or to fight for something new or even to fight for sovereignty. Okay, so this is kind of linking again to the fact that astrology is fantastic to see the sets of potentials that we can work with when we come to, let's say, curate a situation. But when it comes to those military operations or the cloning project or ritual abuse, it basically is meant to take a person and turn them into a monster. Okay, and they did that quite successfully with Moshe Dayan. So yeah, this is what I have to say about that. Raul 22nd can denote that he would be ruining infrastructures of cities and killing people. That, by the way, if I think about Cassandra, Saturn rules paperwork. So Cassandra, she also had this, and for her it was They were looking for her papers, and they found her at the canal, which is kind of like the Dutch way of infrastructure. I don't remember where Saturn was. um, but she was murdered very likely for not complying with some sort of a trafficking cult. Or she didn't want to murder. Um, yeah. And very likely the paperwork was also involved in the motive for murder, because Saturn is ruling Aquarius and Saturn rules paper. The sign is ruling the motive behind something. So for him, for example, he would be killing people for infrastructures, to build cities, or to for the sake of his investments or bonds, because Saturn is also bonds. And for Saturn can also be minerals, and here Mercury can denote of particularly Mercury, or conjoining the Sun, it can be digging for gold. It's kind of invested in bonds that have to do with some technology around the Earth, and Sun is gold. His eighth house would be Scorpio, which means oils and gas and the resources underneath the ground, and that those investments, those passive income, would be basically his active military missions, but also psyops and all that dumbfuckery. So he's probably invested in the things. Um, Picked up a pretty potent position. So if that's true, I mean, there are many ways in which a chart can play out. Um, mm, 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 Mars was actually crossing his descendant. So his ascendant at the seventh house of Israel, he was partnering with Israel. Both he could be a frenemy of Israel, partners and open enemies. Yep, that's what I have to say.